Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar. This afternoon, we're going to be looking at the disputes feature. Now, it was marketed as working with customer disputes, but to be honest, we're going to go through all disputes today because it's quite a small feature, but it is very useful if you're wanting to keep track of some of your outstanding invoices for both customers and suppliers. So we're going to cover all disputes for you today, but potentially quite a short session because we're really sort of honing in on some very specific features over the next few months. So you might find some of these webinars are slightly shorter than the normal ones. So I'm on my own today, so if you do have any questions, please do send your questions across, but bear with me. Like I say, I will be answering questions at the same time as presenting today. So if there's any I can't answer straight away, we might hold on to those for the end of the session today. First of all, just in case any of you are new to our webinars, you will notice that you're placed on mute. So you will see the icon with the microphone in there in red with the line through it. That shouldn't impact your ability to hear me today. And if you do have your questions, you can send them via the questions panel. So use the icon that looks like the speech bubble with the question mark in the middle, and that will get your questions across to myself there. There is also a handout for today, quite a short handout, but there is a handout if you want to download that. And the icon to do that is the one that looks like a document with a folded corner, and then you'll get a copy of today's slides. Like I say, if you've got any questions, get them across to me. Don't feel you've got to wait till the end. Obviously, I'll assess what ones have come through, and we will try, where possible, to do a demonstration for you as well. Okay, so what we're going to cover today is what is a dispute. Then I'm going to show you how to set up dispute reasons. And then I'm going to show you how to flag items as disputed. And there's a couple of different ways we can do that. Then I'll show you how to pay a disputed item, how to remove the disputed flag, and then show you some of the basic reports that come with the software for reporting on disputes as well. Like I said, there's time at the end for any questions that you may have there too. Okay, so first of all, what are disputes? Okay, so it might be that you've got a customer, you've issued some goods to them, and they may come back to you to say, you know, there's been damage to the goods, it's maybe the wrong items. So there might be varying reasons why the invoice would be in dispute. But basically they're saying they don't want to pay for that until it's rectified. So what you could do in your software is mark them as disputed, and it means once you and your customer have come to an agreement on the course of action, then you can remove the flag and continue as normal. What it means is if you're doing things like credit control, you're not going to be chasing them over an invoice that you've perhaps disputed. What we don't want to do is them to say maybe you've sent the wrong goods and then you to continue to chase them for payments. So it's really good for credit control purposes. So an invoice that hasn't been fully paid can be flagged, and then the flag can be removed once you've dealt with the issue with your customer or even your supplier. So supplier invoices can also be flagged as disputed, and these can also be done at the point of entry. Now, this was a new feature that came in version 28 last year, I believe. So what we now have the ability to do is to add it at the point of entry. So I'll show you that one today. And if we do have anyone using the purchase order feature, then you can also mark a purchase order as disputed as well when you are updating to the ledgers. Now, don't worry, we won't spend too long on that, but I just wanted to highlight that for you, that there is that feature there as well. Okay, so first of all, we're going to look at the dispute reasons. Now, to go through this, I'm actually just going to go on to a demonstration because it's far easier to show you it in action than it is to go through screenshots for you. So I'm just going to jump onto my data set. And on the data set there, you can see I'm in my company data. And what we're going to do is just pop into settings and configuration. So whenever you're in your software and there's something that you need to configure to make a bit more bespoke, so things like dispute reasons, account statuses, they're all held within the configuration editor. So in here, you can see what we can configure. We've got things like the emails, the tax codes. We also have dispute reasons. So with the dispute reasons, here we can set up as many reasons as we want, up to 1,000. Now, I am yet to meet a customer who's required more reasons than that, but you can set up your own reason. Now, it will come with one by default, which is number 1, no reason. So just to give you an example of some of the common reasons I've come across in the last few years, we've got things like damaged goods, incorrect invoice, so that might be the figures on the invoice are incorrect, missing purchase order number, and maybe incorrect items on the invoice there. Now, I have just got a message through, so I'm going to have to deal with this one because we're live and I'm on my own, just saying that you can't hear me there. Now, it might just be that it's one individual. If you can hear me from the rest of the group, if you can just let me know, just so that we can make sure that's rectified. Everything looks okay from this point, but it's when you're on your own, there's nobody to back you up and say everything's okay. So if you can hear me, just pop something into the chat just to let me know there. That'd be great. Right, okay, perfect. Great, I can see them coming through. There's a slight delay there as well. Perfect, okay. There's always an issue for one or two here on the hearing. So like I said, I just want to double check it wasn't me just talking to myself for the next 10 minutes or so. Right, so like I say, I was just mentioning there about those dispute reasons. So I've popped in some examples there of ones I've come across when I've been dealing with customers, just so you can have an idea of what reason should I be setting up, or what would be a good reason to have set up in here. So like I say, damaged goods, so it might be you've received the damaged item. If an invoice is incorrect, then obviously you'll need to go back to them and ask for the correct invoice to be issued. Quite often, this is one that I've come across more so recently, if there's a missing purchase order number. So some businesses require a purchase order number, and if that's missing, then again, you can't go any further. And if the items are incorrect in the order. So like I say, you can add as many as you want into here, up to 1,000. And like I said, doubt anyone's going to exhaust that, but you never know. And if you want to create your own reason, then you can just double click on the reason there. And you can just pop in your reason, okay? So we'll just pop something in. So it might just be it was too late. Okay, and then just click on OK to save that. And that means we can add this dispute reason onto any invoices. Okay, so we're going to start with customers first. And I'm just going to show you a couple of ways that you can mark items as disputed. So first of all, we've got our customer list. Now, as you can see, I don't have an extensive list at the moment, but if you had your customer list, you could highlight your customer from the list, and we have the little red flag up here for disputes. Okay, so if we click on disputes, again, it's just opening on the other window there. What that's doing is it's allowing me to view that customer and see if there's anything currently disputed. So at the moment, you can see I do actually, in fact, have a dispute already applied to this account. But what I can also do is add on a dispute if I had another outstanding invoice. So what we'll do is we'll actually create an invoice now. So I'm just going to pop on a batch invoice here. Apologies, everything seems to be opening on the other window for me. Okay, sorry, I'll bring that across there. Okay, so this is the customer record. I'm just going to pop on a quick invoice, say £100 with today's date, etc. And if I now go back onto the record and go into disputes, what you can see there is I'm basically going to have all of the outstanding invoices for that customer showing. And if there's any disputed, we'll see the dispute. If there's any that aren't yet disputed, but we do need to dispute, then we can do that from here. So all I need to do is highlight, click on dispute, and then indicate the reason why we're disputing that invoice. So I'm going to say incorrect invoice for this one. So at the moment, both invoices with this customer are in fact in dispute at the moment. Okay, so that's a quite simple way of popping it on. What we can also do is we can right click on the customer and also select disputes. That way it launches exactly the same window. So it will take you to exactly the same place where we can look at the disputes there. And I don't think it saved my dispute from the last time. But again, we can pop that on. Just bring that across, pop on the reason and save. That should save that for us. So that's how easy it is to pop on a dispute when you're looking at the customer module. To take a dispute off, then it is just as simple as going back into disputes, highlighting the disputed item, and just clicking dispute at the top to remove the flag. So if maybe you've popped on the wrong dispute reason, what you would need to do, you can't just amend the flag, you just need to take it off dispute, pop it back onto dispute with the correct reason. So there's no way of just changing it, you just need to take it off and pop it back on, like that. So I'm going to save that. So at the moment, both of those are in dispute. And obviously, if you had multiple customers, you would highlight the customer that you're looking for and go to dispute. And if there's nothing to show, it won't show you anything in the disputed column. I'll just show you the list of invoices there. So what I want to do now is just show you how to pay off an invoice and show you what happens there. So I'm just going to pop into bank accounts and we're just going to go into a customer receipt for that sole customer that we have and bring up those invoices there, and immediately what you will get is you'll get this message here around there being disputed items. So all we need to do is click past that, and I'm just going to show you what happens if we try to pay one of these off. So I'm just going to go into the receipt column, click pay in full and save. It still lets me pay. Okay, so it's not going to prevent the payment from going through because the customer might still pay you. So you still want to be able to mark that as received, but it will mean that it's no longer marked as disputed. So it's quite simple from the customer side. It's just popping on the flag within the customer's window at the top there, or right click and go to disputes, and just as easy to take that flag back off. I just want to show you some reporting while we're in here before we move on to suppliers. So again, if you want to run some reports to see what you've got in dispute, then we do have reports within the report section under customer invoices, and at the very top there you can see I've got customer invoices disputes, but we've also got disputed invoices by account and also disputed invoices by reason. So if you've got quite a few for the same reason, it will group together for you. So I just want to show you this one first. And as you can see there, we've got the one outstanding item there. So that's just going to be a list of your customer invoice disputes. These ones here obviously are a bit more detailed, they're grouped together. So this one would be grouped together by account. So if you had customers with multiple disputes, it would hold them together per customer. And this one here would hold them together by reason. So it'd be different ways of grouping them together. I'll see if I can show that in more detail on the suppliers in just a moment for you. So like I said earlier, this was marketed just as customer disputes, but as you can see, there's not an awful lot to it. We just wanted to show you this new feature because it's not something not many people use, but it's probably something that could really help you with your credit control. Now the same will happen with your suppliers. So there may be items that you want to flag as disputed because again, it might be that there's damaged goods and you don't want to issue payment yet. So particularly if you're trying to keep on top of everything yourself, or there's maybe a team of you working on this, you want to be able to flag that to yourself or your colleagues, not to pay this because there's an issue with this and we need to get that resolved first before we make that payment. So if we just pop back into our suppliers, now I do have a few more suppliers on here, so the next set of reports should work a little bit better for us because we've got multiple suppliers there. So I'm just going to highlight supplier one. So it's very similar. I've got supplier one here and I can go into disputes. And again, what you can see here is any outstanding invoices, and if a dispute has been applied, we can see the disputed column with the D next to it and the dispute reason. I can change to a different supplier if I wish to do so. They've not got any invoices outstanding. But if we look at the other ones, we do have this one for damaged goods and another one here on this one for incorrect invoice. So we've got quite a few disputes going on at the moment. And again, it's the same for taking an item off dispute in suppliers. Highlight the item, click dispute, and that will take that off for us. Want to pop that back on with maybe a different reason. So again, maybe we've applied the wrong reason. Then we can pop on a different reason, and that will mark that as disputed. What we can also do if we close, I'll say yes to changes, close this, is we can see this in the activity of the items as well. So I'm just going to pop into the supplier. And if we're in the activity and I just expand on here, what you will see, and this happens on customers as well, so you might just be looking at your customer supplier history and looking at what invoice to pay off next, is you can see right next to where the outstanding balance is this D with the asterisk. So again, that is the disputed flag. So if you're looking at your invoices, you know that those are the ones not to pay yet until you've identified what was going on with the dispute there. Okay, so I just want to show you some improvements that came in version, I think I said it was version 28.1. So it would have been this time last year, we had 28.1 released, and we added some improvements which were based on customer feedback around disputes. So if you're receiving goods from a supplier, you might know at the point of receiving those goods that it needs to go straight into a dispute. So it's typically if you've got the wrong items, or the whole thing's arrived damaged. So what we now have in suppliers is the ability to apply a disputed flag at the point of entry. So when you're popping on your invoice, you can make it disputed immediately. So it saves you having to enter the invoice, save it, come out, and then go and dispute it separately. You can do it all in one go. So I'm just going to do this for supplier 2 here. So what I'm going to do is pop on a batch invoice first of all, and bring this across here. So I'm just going to leave all the date, etc., as it is for the time being. Just pop a value in here. And what you can see here now is we have some additional columns for disputed. So if I click into here, then I get that same drop down with my reasons. So I can use the drop down here. And again, it feeds through from exactly the same place in settings and configuration. So I can pop in the disputed reason immediately. I'm just going to put a couple of extra ones on while we're here, just so we can show you those reports to their full capacity in a moment. So I'm just going to copy from the line above, pop in a few different reasons there. Pop too late on that one. So I'm just popping a couple of extra ones in there. Now again, when we come to pay the item, it won't stop us from paying the item. Okay, we can still make that payment to the supplier in the accounts. It will just come up with the flag. So I'll just show you the flag again there. If we go into supplier payment, select our supplier, we again get that message to say it's been marked as disputed, and it's just letting us know it's disputed. It's not telling us it won't post anything, so we can still pay them off. And as you can see in the disputed column, we have the D to indicate that. I'm not going to pay it off because I don't want that to upset our reports that I'm going to try and demonstrate in just a moment. So I won't pay that off just now. But I just wanted to show you one more thing just before we try and generate these reports to show you what they look like. So the reports are very similar in both accounts, in both customers and suppliers. But with suppliers, we have one more step, okay, and that is linked to purchase order processing. Now, I appreciate not everybody uses purchase order processing, but there might be one of you out there who is using it at the moment and would find this feature really useful. So we are getting a bit niche here, but you never know. There may be someone who will take this little gem away. and that is when you're updating your purchase orders to ledgers. So this is the step where you're creating a batch invoice from the purchase order. So to create this, to show you this, I have actually got a couple of purchase orders there that are ready to go. I'm just going to pop in a value on this order. I was going to say, I thought I'd pop this in. I've popped the quantity, the price in the quantity. That's why it's not going through for me. So we'll just actually create a blank one there and a one from scratch. So I'm just going to create a new purchase order. This is what happens when you're trying to create data in a rush there. So I'm just going to clear this one and go into new and just create a really quick purchase order for this particular one and make sure I put the price over here rather than the quantity and save. There we go, pop across all of them there. So I'm going to order now, and then we're going to just get to a point where the order is complete. Okay, so we don't do anything different to the order itself. What happens is when we're updating the ledgers. So we've essentially received the goods, we've marked it in our software as received, we've looked at the items and there's something not quite right. So we're going to go to update ledgers. So this would happen when we receive the invoice from the supplier. We update ledgers. And within here, when I go to update, again, we get that batch invoice window. And within here, again, we add in our reason. So it's exactly the same as the batch invoice, but it's just linking it back to that purchase order module. So I will just pop one more onto here. And we'll say yes to that one because that's a purchase order message, nothing to do with disputes. Okay, so like I say, we can add it through batch invoicing, but also through purchase order module once we update to the ledgers. So what we can do now is we can run those reports. So I'm just going to pop into reports within suppliers, apologies. And we're going to go into supplier invoice reports. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got a few different ones there. So we've got disputed invoices by account, just like we did have in our customers, and disputed invoices by reason. So I'm going to generate these now just so you can see what they both look like. So I'm just going to make sure I've got nothing highlighted. So really key, if we're running reports across our suppliers module, make sure we don't have anything highlighted. We want everyone to be included. And I'm just going to run this one first. And I'm just going to leave the date range open. Obviously, you would pop in your specified date range. And this is grouping them by account. So you can see here it's got the dispute reason of damaged goods, but it's grouping them by account. So we've got the account reference supplier 2, supplier 3, supplier 4, and then we'll move on to dispute reason, which is the missing purchase order number. If we do this one here, again, this is doing it by account reference first and then dispute reason. So it's giving you the same information, it's just grouping them together very slightly differently. So it depends which one's going to work for you. And there is also just the supplier invoices disputes. So there's 3 reports on each side. This is what the one we ran in customers before, and this is just basically a list of all of your disputed items. Okay, so that sort of brings us to the end of disputes. So I'm just going to pop back to the slides. Like I said, we've popped a few demonstrations and a few screenshots in the handout for you today. So the dispute option, despite us saying it was just around customer disputes, it can be used on both your customers and suppliers, and it just means that the dispute flag will be added to the transaction, which means that you can look at which ones are disputed, and you're less likely to chase them for credit control or less likely to pay them if there's still an ongoing sort of dispute over an invoice. When you're doing it on the purchase side, you can add it at the point of entry, which should hopefully save you time. It doesn't stop the invoice being paid. It will just give you that message to flag up that this particular item is in dispute. and you can remove the dispute just like you add the dispute. Highlight the transaction, click on disputes, and then click the red dispute flag to remove it. When you're adding a dispute, remember you must assign a reason. Now, I have got some useful links there for you, so if you do want to have a look at any additional information on disputes, then you do have 3 links on there that are all clickable in the handout for you today. So just going to talk about some upcoming webinars. If there's any final questions, this is a great time to get them across. So please do get them into the chat box now. We're just going to quickly talk about the upcoming webinars. So we are not running any webinars tomorrow morning, so it's not normally on a Friday we do one, but this week we're not, because we are gearing up for a really big change coming in August. So in August we're going to be running sessions on bank feeds. Now I don't know if any of you currently use bank feeds, but we are improving the bank feeds feature. So if you are a bank feeds user, or you'd like to be a bank feeds user, I definitely recommend getting signed up for one of the bank feeds modules webinars that are coming soon. And that is on our help center on our webinar page. It's the top one at the moment because it is trending. So definitely recommend you get yourself signed up for that. But we are doing a little bit of a bank theme. So we're going to be looking at bank recurring items on Tuesday with myself. And also we'll be doing bank reconciliation as well later on in the week. And we are also looking at departments. So if you're looking at an additional way of reporting on your accounts data and grouping transactions together for things like your profit and loss, then the department session is a really good one to join, and Michael will be taking that one. Okay, so that brings us to the end. I don't think there's been any questions. Like I say, it's quite a straightforward feature, but when it's straightforward, not everyone wants to go and click on the button because it does sort of send people into a little bit of nervousness, so I can understand that. But it is, like I say, a really handy feature if you're working across the team and you're looking at credit control and managing payments. So I'll hang on for any questions. We'll give it a few more moments. If you are leaving, thank you very much for joining us today. Apologies for the slight technical issue midway there. But thank you very much for today's session. And like I say, we really do hope that we will see you next week on one of our sessions. I'll put myself on mute for a few moments, but if you're leaving, take care. But we'll pop back before we end the session today. Okay, all quiet on the question front today, so we'll leave it there. So thank you again for joining, and fingers crossed we'll see you on session next week. Take care for now. Goodbye.